Hello there, this is Mr. Benji again, and in this tutorial, I am going to continue a conversation we started in a previous video discussing how to use the concepts under the banner of percentiles, percentile ranks, and interpolation. Now, this is the same frequency distribution that we discussed in the previous video, and we will talk about another question. Here it is. Consider this question. What is the 56th percentile? What is the 56th percentile? Now, recognize that by 56th percentile, we are taking a quick look at whether we can identify clearly indicated the cumulative percentage of 56% from the frequency distribution table that we've constructed thus far. And we can take a look. Ta-da! Right there. Now, we've talked about this. The relative cumulative frequency percentage itself it corresponds to the upper real limit of the X score. Okay? That is to say, in a fairly expedient fashion, we can indicate the answer right away as X equals 5.5. This would be the appropriate answer to the question, what is the 56th percentile? Let's consider another question. What is the 50th percentile? Now, if you recall, moments ago, the instruction was to see if we can identify the exact same corresponding cumulative percentage. Now, in this situation, we are looking for the cumulative percentage of 50%. And when we look, we don't see a 50% clearly indicated in the column of cumulative percentages in the frequency distribution table. What we do see, however, and that's what you need to be responding to, what your brain indicates to you. Your brain, or actually your eyes, it makes sense that your eyes are immediately drawn to the possibility that, okay, it would be somewhere between the 56% and the 24%. And if that's what you're thinking, you are correct. And there's a bit of a procedure that is involved moving forward. And moving forward, what we kind of need to do is to construct a little table here. Here is the discussion of the technique of interpolation. Interpolation is the idea that as long as we have an idea of what the range within the information that we want to look for is, we can use this process to figure out the exact information necessary to respond to questions. So to the question, 50th percentile, we're figuring out what score of X is, or what score of X does the cumulative percentage 50% correspond to. Take a look here. The beginning stages of interpolation is to construct a table that looks something like this. Okay? We know that the cumulative percentage of 50% lies somewhere between 56% and 24%. Let me just write this down to indicate. Okay? Which makes sense. I believe it should make sense to us. 50% is somewhere between 56% and 24%. Now, the corresponding score of X equals whatever, that would be somewhere right here. We can indicate this with a question mark. If you're comfortable and inclined to use algebraic expressions, for example, the letter X. If you want to use letter X to indicate such, you're welcome to do that, a small x or a small p or whatever. For me, I believe it would be in the beginning stages of learning interpolation, it's just easier to put a question mark. The question mark is what we're looking for. Do you see? The question mark is the answer that we're looking for in response to the question, what is the 50th percentile? Now, to figure this out, think with me for a moment. Somewhere between 56% and 24%, and we have actually the sufficient amount of information to figure out exactly where. Here is how. Make an assumption that you can determine the relative units in between 56% and 50%, as well as between 50% and 24%. Let's just say that we use the letter A to represent the distance and the letter B to represent the other distance. A indicating the relative space or the distance, how far apart, how many units are between 56% and 50%. We represent such with A, and in this situation we can say A equals 6 units. And of course by units we actually are referring to the percentage, but regardless, for demonstration purposes it is okay to indicate such. And with B, what are the number of units? We've got 26 units right here. By the way, if at any point, if I'm not clear, pause the video or move back a few seconds just so you're clear. You really need to stay on track and focus. So we've established this between 56% and 50%. There is the space, there's the difference of 6 units. Between 50% and 24%, we have 26 units apart. They are 26 units apart. Now, in relation to then where the score of X is that we're looking for, the question mark, then we need to make equivalent, okay? Our task is to make equivalent the relative space or units. They need to be the same. They need to be the exact same. A and B. The relative units, they need to be the same. Now, to figure out exactly how far, the number, the question mark is in relation to 5.5, how far it should be in relation to 4.5, we need to go through the rest of the procedure of interpolation. And here it is. Here it is. We will, if we were to use the distance A as a reference, this is what we're doing. A will divide it by the sum of A and B, in essence, 6 units. So here's the setup. We've got 6 divided by 32. Moving forward to reduce the fraction, 3/16, and in decimal, 0.1875. Okay? So what we've come up with is a fraction of 3/16. Okay, a fraction of 3/16, or the decimal of 0.185. That's the portion of A in the distance between 5.5 to 4.5. Now, I know you'll agree that it's not hard to eyeball exactly the difference in terms of X. This is 1.0. Okay, this is 1.0. Now we need to figure out the relative portion of 0.1875 in relation to the 1.0. Okay, easy peasy. 0.1875 what we would do is to subtract from 1.000 the number 0.1875. This would give us the relative distance from the number, the question mark, to 4.5. That is to say, in the scale of x, the distance a is in the units of 0.1875, and distance b represents 0.8125. To figure out then what the question mark is, as you can see here, the question mark essentially is 5.5 subtracting 0.1875, which gives us 5.3125, and hence the answer to the question, what is the 50th percentile according to the frequency distribution we've been looking at? The 50th percentile corresponds to the score of x equals 5.3125. I hope the answer is clear. I hope the answer is clear. If at any point you were confused along the way, review the material. Okay, review the material, go back to the beginning, plow through it, rewatch it, and to gain further clarity as well as mastery of the material here. Again, more of such will be made available in the foreseeable future. I believe I'd like to further discuss the same frequency and to consider various different ways to interpret and understand percentile ranks, percentiles, and so forth. Hit the like and subscribe buttons to stay up to date with quality tutorials like this one that can help you succeed in your studies. You've been watching, again, Mr. Benji at Mr. Benji Now on YT. I'm a college instructor in Vancouver, BC, Canada. Until next time.